In this video, we're going to provide a brief introduction to the nervous system. Now, the nervous system is essentially the major control and communication system of the body that has three overlapping functions. And the first function that we'll address here briefly is sensation. And when we talk about sensation, sensation is a function of the nervous system that is generated from what are called receptors. And receptors are neurons that detect changes that occur inside and outside the body. Now, when I talk about a change, I'm referring to a stimulus. So a chemical that would activate a neuron that functions as a sensor, or tissue that is stretched that we call a mechanical stimulus, will all generate a signal that goes to the nervous system that conveys this sensory information. And we often refer to this as gathered information regarding the internal or external state of the body. And we refer to that sensory input as the afferent division. And so this, when we see the term afferent, we're referring to information going into the nervous system. The next function is integration, and integration is the next step after sensory signals have been generated. And so what integration does is it processes that sensory input and then develops a decision as to what the response will be. Now, that decision is implemented after the integration takes place, and that results in an action. And the action generates a response by activating what we call effector organs. So muscle tissue is an example of an effector organ. And that response, which is the action, generates motor output that we call the efferent division. So two major elements, in addition to others to focus on here from this slide, is that afferent information are signals going towards the nervous system. Efferent is away from the nervous system. And there are two major portions to the nervous system. Here on the right hand side, we have the central nervous system, which is made up of the brain and all of its structures, and the spinal cord and all of its structures. The peripheral nervous system refers to the nerves that emanate from the central nervous system. So the cranial nerves and the spinal nerves exit the brain and spinal cord, and it's these nerves that interact with the various organs of the body. So we can think about the central nervous system as an integrating center and a command center. So this is where all the information is generated that will regulate the activity of the organs in the body. The peripheral nervous system is that part of the nervous system that resides outside the CNS, and you can see that in these yellow extensions coming away or moving away from the spinal cord. And so the peripheral nervous system is composed of nerves branching away from the central nervous system, and we're talking about the cranial nerves and the spinal nerves. The peripheral nerves form connections between the body and the various organs of the body and the central nervous system. One term to be aware of is the term ganglia, and you can see that here in this picture, pointing to these enlargements of the peripheral nervous system. And ganglia is a general term referring to clusters of nerve cell bodies, neuronal cell bodies. In other words, these are clusters of neurons, which are nerve cells. In this slide, we see a chart that also provides a different way of looking at the two major divisions of the nervous system, which is the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. And when we think about the peripheral nervous system, we break it up into a sensory division, or afferent division, and a motor, or efferent division. And each of these are divided up into two separate components. With the sensory division, we break that up into somatic sensory, and this involves various functions such as generating information regarding touch, pain, pressure, and a whole host of other senses. In addition to hearing, equilibrium, which regulates our ability to stand and sit upright, as well as vision. Visceral sensory refers to those sensations that come from visceral organs, so our abdominal organs as well as our thoracic cavity organs. So when we talk about afferent, we're referring to information that is conveyed through the means of bioelectrical impulses. And this is information that is being conveyed from the periphery towards the spinal cord. When we talk about somatic, the two components here include general and special, and visceral is also divided up into the general and special. On the motor side, these are bioelectric impulses conveyed in using the same mechanism as the afferent, except it's going into the opposite direction. The efferent signals are traveling from the spinal cord or central nervous system out towards various organs. On the somatic side of the motor division, that refers to the motor innervation of skeletal muscles. So when you see the term somatic, that's referring to our voluntary ability to activate skeletal muscle. The ANS, or the autonomic nervous system, refers to the branch of the motor division that we don't think about but is regulated automatically. And that includes innervation of smooth muscle, cardiac muscle, and various glands. And the two branches of the autonomic nervous system is the sympathetic division and the parasympathetic division. So when we take a look at the four nervous system subdivisions, just to summarize, the somatic sensory provides information regarding the state of our skin, the body wall, and the limbs. And this somatic sensory gives rise to our conscious perception of the state of our body. In terms of the visceral sensory, these are neurons that innervate various visceral organs. As you can see here on this table at the bottom, we're looking at just an example here of the stomach. So the stomach is lined with sensory neurons that, if the stomach stretches because we've eaten a meal, that sensory information will convey information through bioelectric impulses to the spinal cord. The somatic portion of the nervous system innervates skeletal muscles, as you can see here in this illustration, and also controls smooth muscle. As you can see in this picture as an example, this is an illustration of the digestive system, which is made up of smooth muscle, but we can't voluntarily activate that smooth muscle, but that's under control of the autonomic nervous system. So this ends our introductory video on the nervous system.